We've been doing lots of prayers on our diocese Facebook page, and invite anybody, any men and women of faith, to please join us. And those without faith, this may be a moment of turning to something deeper and maybe somewhere they haven't turned before.
Bishop David Tubes, thank you so much for joining us. And again, you please be safe tonight.
We will. You too, Lauren. God bless you.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
5 days on the job. Wow. And I follow him on Facebook, Bishop David Tubes, and I got to tell you, I've been turning to his messages for a little inspiration. And, you know, hopefully that reached and touched somebody out there in Southeast Texas to give them the inspiration they needed to get the wherewithal to make it through tonight.
And what a powerful message, praying for safety and strength, and telling us our lives are, as you see on the screen, the most important thing, that homes, parishes, schools can all be rebuilt. David, what a welcome to the bishop here in Southeast Texas. We're glad he's here, and we're glad for his prayers for our community. Let's talk a little bit about how you can pray, how you can also prepare. And we've been talking about the first aid kit that you may have around your house, some things that you want to keep handy in case of damage tonight. Let's be honest. Bandages, antiseptic wipes, an instant ice pack. All helpful tools to have. I know most of the stores, as you've seen, are closed and boarded up, and you really should be in your safe place at your home at this point. But it's certainly perhaps a good time to head into the medicine cabinet and see what you have that could help your family in the event of the unexpected and the unfortunate as the storm rolls ashore. All right. Also going to talk a little bit about kind of where things stand as you're here with us. We're just after 8:30 tonight. We know in Southeast Texas, we saw the live pictures from Beaumont. You know, the conditions really haven't changed, haven't deteriorated much. And we can show you that on our 12 News Storm Tracker. No change at this point in the forecast cone, although Patrick, looking at these latest radar images, was telling us that he really expects a bit more of an eastward trajectory. And that is but a sliver of good news for us in Southeast Texas, as he's been underscoring every little mile matters at this point. And we're thinking hard for our friends in southwestern Louisiana. Patrick, you're with us, I understand.
Yeah, let's take a look at radar once again. You can see back over to Cameron, south of Jennings, that's where I think the tropical storm force winds of 39 miles an hour will be. Let's take a look at the current wind speeds, and there you go. You can see Port Arthur. This is wind speed, sustained winds, 24 in Lake Charles, and over in Port Arthur, 22, 14 in Orange. No big deal. We can handle that. Wind gusts, there you go. That's exactly where it is. So Lake Charles seeing sustained winds of 36 miles an hour. Let me go back to radar, and you'll see that is where tropical storm force winds are. So we've got probably about let's see if it's moving north at 15. Let me put the ruler on here, and we'll go something like that. Maybe an hour and a half before, maybe hour and 3/4. So that would be 9:30. We'll say 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, we'll start seeing tropical storm force winds, Orange back over to Port Arthur, moving into Southeast Texas. And then, as you can see, we have to deal with the potential for I'm going to have to move the radar again. It's moving north, maybe a little northwest. Not much. Getting some crazy reports from the recon planes that are in the storm right now. They're seeing winds of 160 to 180 miles an hour just above the surface. We'll see what happens at 10 with the next update, but this could be very close to being Cat 3 or Cat 5 hurricane at landfall.
And boy, though, it is racing northward.
It's moving 15, but I'm looking at these red colors. Look how fast the red colors are moving around that circle. Watch that. Let me put it in motion, because that's going to tell you that how quickly the winds are. It's going to be the north and east center of that eye wall. It's going to see the strongest winds. And let me do this. Yeah, it is really Cameron.
That's your call at this point, unless it turns even more northerly.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. It's just when. Does it do it after landfall or what?
Right.
But I'm just saying it's looking like Cameron, very close to Cameron. But still, that means Orange County. If you're in Orange, you have maybe an hour to go before that you can get out. I would highly suggest you do so, because this means you have wind gusts 100. I hope it's not more than 130. Could it be more than 130 miles an hour? Absolutely. You know what that's going to the trees and with people's roofs? That's how serious this is. It's going to be quite a gradient between Orange and Beaumont. Is going to be a difference in as far as what we see in southeast Texas.
Patrick, we really appreciate your insights, because you're watching the images here on the radar, and you're also watching our live reports from the ground, and people in Beaumont saying, okay, what's our timing? How much longer do we have? And how long will it really be, quote unquote, that bad? So you're kind of thinking a window from maybe 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., something like that, at this speed?
For the triangle, but it's going to be moving up towards the lakes area. We're going to hand it off towards Kirbyville and back up towards Newton and Newton County and Jasper County, Orange County. Probably going to see the worst of it. I'm especially worried for Orange, Bridge City, and Port Arthur as far as the winds, of course, Sabine Pass. But again, the 120, 30, 40, maybe 50 mile per hour winds in Orange, the city of Orange, and then probably 100, maybe 110, 90 to 110 mile per hour gusts in Beaumont. Again, this is not an exact science, folks, and there's going to be quite a gradient. In other words, a big change between Orange, Beaumont, bless you, and over towards Winnie.
I want to flip back just a couple of weeks, because you and I were on the air the night we had that severe thunderstorm in Beaumont just a couple of weeks ago.
Good analogy.
And, that was probably a prolonged, by prolonged, I mean, I was standing outside filming it, 10 to 15 minutes of wind gusts, say 40 to 50, maybe
50, 55.
Right. And we saw,
What you saw, that is such an outstanding way to bravo. Excellent analogy. That was 55 miles an hour. And we had that for, like you said, 15 minutes?
Right.
Double that is what we'll see in Beaumont.
Okay. Well, we need to be prepared. And folks, if you're watching at home and waiting and saying, when's it coming? There's the assessment from Patrick. You need to keep your families inside. And, really, we've talked about this. I would be finding interior rooms away from the windows and away, if you can find a part of your house that doesn't have any trees nearby.
Yeah. Trees are going to go down towards the southwest, because we're going to have northeasterly winds, and they're going to start turning easterly as it goes through the triangle. Then the winds are going to shift to the southwest as the storm and the eye goes by, and that will probably be after about 2 or 3 in the morning.
Okay.
Probably about 3.
Folks, we've been monitoring the Intergy power outages, no problems just yet. We'll talk more about how you can do that as well. Sign up for text alerts and also follow things right there on their website and zoom in. As if you've not done it before, we'll show you how easy it can be done. Right now, I want to go back to anchor Lauren Hensley. She's with me. I understand you've got the Jasper County judge with us?
Yep, Jasper County Judge Mark Allen joins me by phone. Mark Allen, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good, man. We're all tired, but we're still here.
I understand it's been a long night for so many people, our county judges, our first responders. So tell me a little bit about your biggest concern right now for Jasper County.
Well, right now we're still watching the storm itself, watching the path. That's our biggest concern. Right now, we're focusing on the winds and the flooding. I mean, depending on where Laura makes landfall, depends on and what that path is going to finally be as it crosses land, is going to determine whether we get 10 inches of rain or 15 inches of rain. It's going to determine whether our wind speeds are tropical storm type speeds, or whether or not we're going to actually get hurricane force winds. So all eyes are on the screen, and we're watching closely to see what we're going to have in the morning, because we all know the higher the wind speeds, the more search and rescue operations we're going to be doing, the more damaged homes and businesses we're going to have, and So that's what our biggest concern is right now: safety of our people and their homes that they work to take care of.
Now, earlier, the message across our viewing area was get out, evacuate if you can. What have your observations been in Jasper County? Are people hunkering down, or do you think the bulk of people left the area?
I'll be honest with you. I think a lot of people are hunkering down. We've been sending that message out now for a couple of days, trying to push people to go. I did the mandatory evacuation yesterday. But like all the Southeast Texas counties, we found that a lot of people are just staying where they're at. They may migrate over to a neighbor's home or a family member's home, maybe traveling just a few miles north into the South Jasper County area to stay with family members there. But it's a big gamble because depending on where that eye wall is, depends on how much damage. And so we've seen a lot of people in our county and a lot of people in the other counties that are they're basically sheltering in place or sheltering with some of their loved ones. And we noticed that early on yesterday whenever we noticed that there was hardly any traffic on the road. You know, there were a lot of people evacuating, but it was nowhere near the gridlock type situation that we had with Rita or with Ike, where we had that enormous amount of vehicles on the road.
Everybody remembers those images, just bumper to bumper traffic. Folks, if you're just joining us, this is Jasper County Judge Mark Allen. So how will you be spending the night, Judge?
I'll be at the EOC. Me and some of our Commissioners Court members will be here the whole night working. I have Commissioner Schaffner up here for Precinct 1 and Commissioner Parker up here for Precinct 2, where we're going to be basically here the whole night, staying up, monitoring, trying to assist the first responders in getting coordinated on what they need to do. We've got several people in our shelter here at the EOC, a lot of first responders that are just getting a little bit of rest and getting ready to deploy out tomorrow morning for search and rescue operations.
For sure.
So we're going to be here monitoring the whole night, and we anticipate all day tomorrow and probably the next night just dealing with calls and people's needs.
Sure, get that rest because tomorrow the work begins, we'll say.
Yes, ma'am. And we do anticipate evacuation probably after the storm and probably a day or so into it afterwards from people that realize that the electricity is off, the air conditioner's not working, the water. So you're going to run into a lot of people that are going to want to be evacuated or want to relocate out of the area until power can be restored. That happens every storm, but I anticipate this is going to be a lot greater this time as the storm does hit.
Jasper County Judge Mark Allen, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you stay safe where you're at tonight. So much for your insight. As always, we appreciate talking to you.
Thank you, Lauren. You be safe, and thanks for getting the word out.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Jasper County Judge Mark Allen really putting things into perspective. He believes a lot of folks in his county hunkering down with their families. It sounds like families come together to weather this storm. And again, as you just heard him say, the real work begins tomorrow morning. First responders in Jasper County getting that rest before this storm because their work is going to start well into the wee morning hours and out the day tomorrow on those search and rescue missions. Jordan, I'm going to send it back to you.
You know, Lauren, it's good to have the perspective from the judge there at the Emergency Operations Center and the reminder that whether you're in Jasper or Sabine Pass tonight or Bridge City or Bevel Oaks, you know, you are on your own. They're not going to come out once the winds increase, and we really are very much at this point nearing the tropical storm force winds threshold for these first responders to stay at their police departments, at their emergency operations centers, because they need to be ready to go out in the morning to assist.
Yeah, Jordan, I want to talk briefly about that. Earlier today, the PIO for Beaumont Police, Haley Morrow, she posted on her Facebook page a reminder that there's going to be no ambulances. There's going to be no fire and rescue crews. There's not going to be a police response once those winds hit 35 miles per hour. She says you're going to be on your own. And she also said, if that sounds scary, it's because it is. So a powerful statement the Beaumont PIO officer, Haley Morrow, shared. And yeah, that is a little chilling to think about. So, you know, our message for folks who are weathering the storm is to get into that interior room, get away from the glass, get away from the windows. And if you do find yourself in a sticky situation, help will eventually be on the way. So always keep that hope. We've We've got the Cajun Navy, who you heard from earlier today. We also have, different, I believe the National Guard staging, as well as, some other folks with boats staging at Ford Park. One of our reporters was there today. So it's going to be a massive effort into the early morning hours tomorrow with these search, recovery, and rescue missions.
Absolutely, Lauren. Thank you for that insight. We've talked a lot about the storm surge and how significant it's expected to be, especially in places like Cameron and Calcasieu Parish there in southwestern Louisiana. We know Port Arthur has the seawall, but there's going to be a test for it. NBC's Sam Brock was in PA earlier.
I'm Sam Brock in Port Arthur, where along the Gulf Coast tonight, it's not just the winds, but the water they're fearing from that catastrophic storm surge.
And Hurricane I covered this island. And
the impact can be devastating, even from small surges. At 3 feet, those floodwaters are already life-threatening. At 6 feet, the waves can smash through windows and doors. At 9 feet, entire neighborhoods can be destroyed. Laura's storm surge could top out at 20 feet.
This has been categorized repeatedly as an unsurvivable storm surge where it will be hitting.
And the National Hurricane Center warning the waters can push 30 miles inland. In the Texas city of Port Arthur, I'm standing on top of a levee that's built up and reinforced to handle storm surge, but not 15 to 20 feet worth of it. The mayor here, deeply concerned about what's to come.
At about 5 o'clock, it's going to be you and God.
We found people scrambling to get out, remembering the ruthless rising waters in hurricanes past.
I've been through Harvey, and I ain't finna change this. I just get on out of here. I ain't gonna just take no chances this time, man. 'Cause I was in water up to my shoulders.
With these waters from the Gulf expected to barrel ashore, concern also for major oil refineries here, which could be knocked offline for weeks.
Sam Brock there in Port Arthur. Folks, we've got breaking information just coming in from TxDOT. They have just put out an alert that they have now closed Interstate 10 east and west in Lake Charles. Chief Meteorologist Patrick Vaughn's been talking about the anticipation of how bad the storm surge will be there in the Lake Charles area. And again, breaking right now, TxDOT wouldn't be TxDOT, but their counterpart in Louisiana has now closed in Lake Charles, east and westbound. So as Patrick stated earlier, you're stranded at that point if you're in that section of southern Louisiana. 8:48 as you watch our continuing live coverage of Hurricane Laura. We know have not really deteriorated yet around the Golden Triangle. Patrick still thinks we have about an hour until that occurs. We'll go to his satellite and radar imagery if we can at this point as we track this storm, still strengthening, staying just below the Category 5 threshold, winds 150 miles an hour. That's the incredible infrared satellite images there. We've watched the storm turn just a little bit more to the north, and again, that is providing some good news for southeast Texas. As you see that large polygon on there, the yellow outline, that is the tornado watch still in effect as these feeder bands and actually more of the center of the storm move ashore. Patrick, I'm being told your microphone is off, by the way. We'd love to hear from him here in just a second as we watch this approach. We've got you now, sir. What are you thinking at this point? Put it into perspective for us.
I just hope everybody in southwest Louisiana that has evacuated. That's what I'm hoping.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just don't want a repeat of what happened there in 1957. There were 400 to 600 people who lost their lives in Lake Charles or in southwest Louisiana because of Audrey. I hope that does not repeat itself tonight.
Okay. Folks, if you're watching our live coverage either on air or on our 12 News Now app or YouTube, I understand we are coming to you from a remote facility, and they're telling me from our control room that we actually may take a quick pause in our coverage, and you may see an update from one of our sister stations on this storm. And I believe that's going to happen right now. Is that correct, guys? No? Okay. Well, at some point, just a heads up, at some point we are going to have to allow that to happen just for a quick reset with some of our technology. Patrick's tracking the eye 96 miles from Lake Charles at this point. 12-acre Lauren Hensley, I'm going to send it to you for just a second.
Yeah, Jordan, I want to get to that breaking news you were talking about. So the Louisiana Department of Transportation sending out an update that I-10 both directions are closed in the Lake Charles area. So I have that map behind me. You can take a look at this. Closure, I-10 both directions from Lake Charles. Here's a look at where that area is. You can see all these warning signs, and you can see the area in black where I-10 is closed in Lake Charles. Again, Lake Charles predicted to take the brunt of the storm, and Chief Meteorologist Patrick Von thinks we're about maybe an hour out from seeing those gusts of wind, seeing that force really pick up, especially in the Lake Charles area. So if you compare this to Patrick's map, the track is kind of taking it in, Hurricane Laura, in this way. So we do have concerns about I-10 in the days to come. What will this look like for folks who travel in between Louisiana and Southeast Texas? We know there are so many folks in Southeast Texas who depend on Louisiana for work, for their source of income. So we do expect that this road closure to be the first of several. Tomorrow morning, we're going to wake up, wait and see, and really determine how I-10 is being impacted. So guys, we're going to take a brief pause in our coverage here, and we're going to send it over to meteorologist Andrew Wilson. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and you are continuing to track Hurricane Laura for us.
Yeah, this storm is still making its way just on off towards the north-northwest at about 15 miles per hour. The storm currently has 150 mile per hour sustained winds. So that does make this a Category 4 hurricane. Now, it's just on the edge of becoming a Category 5. Whether it becomes a Category 5 or remains a Category 4, that actually, there's not much of a difference there. It is still a very strong and dangerous hurricane, still making its way towards that southwest Louisiana, southeast Texas coastline. So let's get a closer look exactly where the eye is at the moment, where you can see it just clean as day right now on the radar as this system continues to get closer on towards Cameron Parish, Louisiana. It's kind of just south of Cameron Parish, getting very closer. You see a tornado warning on the screen. That's going to be something that we're watching
One more question. Nat's mic. Kill that. It's off. It's off. Great.
Waters. There's things in the water that can injure you, to possibly even kill you, and I'm not just talking about wildlife. I'm talking about debris. I'm talking about live power lines. All that kind of stuff could be very dangerous. Try to stay indoors if you can. Remember what I said. There's going to be a lot of tornadoes within that eye wall. Where that eye wall is going to go is looking like it'll be kind of closer on right towards Sabine Pass. And I'm actually going to go ahead and bring back up the radar here, because that may give you a little bit better look at exactly what I'm talking about. Here's where the eye is. I'm going to go ahead and try to also put this into pause, guys, and may have a little bit of a struggle with it with the way that I'm working from home here. But you'll notice that that eye is getting closer on, kind of just up towards the very southwest tip of Louisiana. So kind of closer towards Sabine Pass. Now that front right quadrant, that's where we have that big tornado warning right now in southern Louisiana for Vermilion and Cameron parishes. That's where kind of that front right quadrant seems to be making landfall. And when I mention that front right quadrant, why I'm saying that so much, that's typically where we have the highest impacts from a hurricane. But we can also have still just significant storm surge just on that front left quadrant, right towards that Port Arthur area. And that's also where we could still also have a lot of tornadoes and still also that damaging wind. So let's get a closer look at some highways down here. First, we have Cameron, Louisiana. That seems to be where this storm is going to be making landfall. If not, it could be making it just kind of closer on towards Sabine Pass. Let's get closer on down towards the Beaumont area and down towards Port Arthur, and you'll notice that some of these highways are going to be going underwater first if they're not already underwater. Highway 82, 27, 73. All these roads are going to be going underwater quickly, and I actually want to get even closer on down to show you that we're going to be watching some water even possibly cover more roads. Now I'm going to go ahead and toss it back to the desk. We're going to continue to keep you updated on this storm throughout tonight.
Andrew Wilson.
Yes.
Andrew.
My mic is on. Yeah, you
guys,
got
actually,
me.
We're going to go ahead and continue coverage right here, I just found out. So
Okay.
Here's what we're seeing. Right towards Sabine Pass and down towards 73. This is going to be right along the Sabine River. I want you to notice all these roads. These are roads that are going to be going underwater first, possibly. We're talking about closer on towards 73, right there at the state line. I-10, there's so many low-lying areas there near Orange, Texas, stretching on over towards Beaumont. There's so many low-lying areas right there along I-10. I want you to stay away from that. If you can get north, if your area starts to go underwater, you want to make sure that you can get to a higher point in your house. And if you are forced, this is if you are forced into the attic, have something to be able to break through the roof. This is something that people had to do. This is a last-ditch effort. If you decided to stay in an emergency situation, if you have to get into the attic, have something to break through the roof to get on top of the roof. Bring it with you. But that's a last-ditch effort, everyone. Now, we're going to continue to keep you updated on this storm, of course, as we head throughout tonight. And for more on what this storm is doing, I'm going to go ahead and toss things back to the desk.
All right, meteorologist Andrew Wilson from our sister station. Folks, I don't think Andrew can hear me. Shake your head if you can, and we'll go back to you. I did have a question from watching that. Oh, you can hear me. Great. From just watching your analysis there of the storm surge forecast, we've been hearing that this jog more to the north should give some storm surge protection, if you will, for us in our immediate part of southeast Texas and Jefferson and Orange counties. Do you agree with that? Oh, well, maybe Andrew can't hear me. It's okay. We're getting Patrick reset here. We do, guys, appreciate your patience. We are broadcasting from a remote facility right now. Wanted to make sure that all of our crews and all of us stayed safe, and our goal was to be able to stay on the air with you
no problem.
through the duration.
I hope y'all, can stay
yes,
safe
we
and
can.
Continue to have.
We can still hear Andrew. Yes, we are praying for all of our safety. Andrew dialing in from his home to assist us tonight, meteorologist Andrew Wilson. We're going to get to Chief Meteorologist Patrick Vaughn in our Storm Tracker Center in just a moment. The 9 p.m. advisory just came out. When the storm gets this close to the coast, they start putting them out every hour. And they've kept the winds at 150 miles per hour sustained. So what's that mean for places like Beaumont, Port Arthur, and Orange? Depending exactly where you are and exactly what amount that the storm jogs to the east, that's going to ultimately determine how bad the wind gusts will be. So I understand we're still working to get Patrick there, so I want to go to Lauren Hensley, who is with us as well, monitoring social media. Lauren?
Yeah, Jordan, we spoke with Kelly Lewis, who's in Groves, and as promised, she sent me a photo. I could see it, but I was unable to share it with you guys. So I'm sharing this photo from Kelly Lewis, who is located in Groves. She's with her family. They're hunkering down, bracing for Hurricane Laura. They chose not to evacuate, but Kelly described a very peaceful scene, moments ago when the sun was still out. She described a very, very beautiful sunset, as you can just see the beautiful sky, vibrant, different colors. So, a lot of folks in Southeast Texas, like Kelly, they're choosing to hunker down. So many people lost their homes, all of their belongings in, other storms like Imelda and Harvey. And so families are making the decision to stay to protect the things that they worked so hard for. So we know a lot of families making a lot of difficult decisions to stay, to go. And Kelly Lewis in Groves, thank you so much for that photo. Again, she's hunkering down with her family, and hopefully Kelly will keep us up to date as her experience through Laura. I want to get to this over here. I want to pull up Gator Country. This is video of beloved Gator Country from Imelda last year. If you remember, just incredible flooding, right? So I want to make the comparison from Imelda to Hurricane Laura, because right now most of the area is going to brace for winds. It's going to be those areas along the coast that are going to see that strong storm surge. But where Gator Country is located in the Fannette area, they're really bracing for strong winds. So I spoke with Gary Sarge by phone. How does this make planning for the animals a little different? He says that he's had to change the barricades, the lay of those barricades of the gator enclosures. And in case you're wondering if where Big Al and Big Tex are going to weather the storm, they're going to do it right in their own enclosures, in their habitat. According to Gary Sarge, the best bet is for these gators to stay put in this high wind event, and he believes that changing up the way the enclosures are laid out will help these gators stay in place. If you remember last year, beloved Big Al and Big Tex, they went missing for a few weeks following Imelda. That's because the flooding, it pushed them out of their enclosures. Luckily, they weren't too far away, and they were found a couple weeks later. So again, thanks to Gary Sarge from Gator Country for checking in with us. The Cajun Navy was stationed at his facility in the Fannette area, but they decided to push back a little. Some of the Cajun Navy now stationed at Buc-ee's in Mount Bellevue. And if you remember, the Cajun Navy, their forte is really those high water rescues. And again, because Hurricane Laura, for the most part, is supposed to be a very strong wind event, they just decided to push back a little ways in anticipation for different types of search and rescues. So they do expect the Cajun Navy there to be some high water rescues down near the coast. But again, a lot of their manpower, they're preparing for search and rescue missions, debris removal, things like that. So thanks to Gary and also the Cajun Navy for checking in with us. Good info there. And just wanted to keep you up to date as, some folks are staying the storm, like Gary Sarge, his wife Shannon, they're bracing down with their animals for Hurricane Laura. So a little bit of a comparison between Hurricane Laura and Imelda. What we experienced with Imelda is expected to be different than what many of us will experience with Hurricane Laura. So Jordan, I'm going to send it back to you, and maybe we have Patrick ready yet?
I think we do, but I also understand we've got a wonderful time lapse to share. Lauren, we looked at your picture earlier from the beautiful sunset capture by our viewer in Groves. And I think we've got a time lapse to share from Beaumont, captured by Luis De Leon and his photojournalist earlier today.
Oh, yeah.
This is the sunset at the Market Basket.
Hurricane sunset.
105 and 69. We know exactly where that is, Patrick.
Yeah, it's right by Education First Federal Credit Union, right across the street.
And I mean, you know, is it the high clouds?
Yeah,
Their
exactly.
bands?
It's exactly. It's the cirrus central dense overcast.
We just know it's pretty.
CDO.
Mother Nature tests us in these times.
Yep,
Gives us beauty before potentially really bad things.
Oh goodness, what year was that? I'm trying to remember which year we had something similar like this. Was it Gilbert in 1980?
That's a year or two before me.
I remember that.
Patrick, that memory is a steel trap.
You know, I remember. Was it Bonnie in the mid '80s?
Yeah, 86.
I was
June
in Groves
86,
Groves
right after
for that.
I graduated high school.
Guys, that's the year I was born.
86.
Well, I was alive, and
goodness.
I actually remember we debated whether to stay. So there's another shot of the time lapse with some of the equipment staging here in Southeast Texas. So let's get the update. 7 minutes after the hour, Patrick, kind of set the scene for us. We mentioned the advisory here at 9 p.m., keeping the winds at 150.
Exactly, and still, this could change. We're still, I think, a couple hours out away from making landfall, at least 2-3 hours. But radar showing a band of tropical storm force winds, I believe, roughly from Jennings, making its way over towards Lake Charles and back to the southwest, nearing Port Arthur. I think this is where we're going to start seeing at least gusts to tropical storm force. Tornado warning along the coastline. That's because of one of those bands. We'll likely see tornado warnings in southeast Texas all night tonight. That's what I'm thinking. All right, and let's take a look at the winds. And we've got north to northeast winds across southeast Texas right now, as you can see. No big deal. 30 over in Lake Charles, 23 in Port Arthur. We'll be watching these gusts very closely. Getting a gust now to 31 miles an hour in Port Arthur. So you can see starting to pick up 25 mile per hour wind gust over to Orange. And there you go, Lake Charles now gusting at 40 miles an hour. So that's certainly tropical storm force winds. But as you can see, things are going to start picking up because of the gustiness as the storm continues to move closer to the coastline. We'll see these values go way up as we head through the nighttime hours. And you can see the eye, and this is maybe just around Cameron, Louisiana, and the eye wall. If it doesn't hit Orange, the eye wall is going to be very close to Orange and head right up the Sabine River, maybe over and towards Newton County, as you can see. Boy, that outline of the box is a good reference point. But again, if you're east of this, it's going to be catastrophic storm surge. This is going to be historic storm surge. Lake Charles, Moss Bluff, Sulphur, Carless. These are, I'll just watch. I really hope we somehow dodge what is possible out of this. But again, you can see heading off towards the north. Now, west of this is the place to be. That's the dry side. Get to that in just a second. But first off, as we take a look at radar, again, we're watching this feeder band. This is definitely sustained tropical storm force winds right there. As you can see, tornado warning for where it the coastline. Without a doubt, this is where the hurricane force winds are in the eye wall, which is continuing to move off towards the north and northwest at about 15 miles an hour. So we've got maybe 2.5 hours before we make landfall, and I'm starting to start seeing tropical storm force winds over within the next hour affecting Port Arthur and back over towards Orange as this system starts to move closer to the coastline. So here's the latest. It's still 150 miles per hour. Winds are out of the north and northwest at 15 miles an hour. Hurricane warnings in effect for southeast Texas, southwest Louisiana. And let's take a see. It looks like, I still think this may be a little to the west. Regardless, we want to move it to the east. 150 mile per hour wind gusts, or I should say sustained winds, and wind gusts will be probably 185, maybe higher, over towards Lake Charles, over towards Orange. Could see some wind gusts of 120, 130. It just depends on how close that that eye wall goes to orange. If it's close to Orange, the city of Orange, you could have wind gusts to 150 miles an hour. So that's where we're at right now.
And it's staggering, sobering, and painful to think about. So I apologize, I'm pressing you on this, but in the triangle, you're thinking gusts more in the 100 to the 100 range?
We're talking between Orange and Beaumont, there is going to be quite the gradient. It's all where that eye wall, it's going to come down to maybe 10 miles is going to make all the difference.
Wow.
Yeah, it's what we call a gradient. Between, say, Orange would see 120, 130, hopefully not any more than that. It's certainly possible. It just depends on exactly where that eye wall goes. If it goes right over Orange, then you're looking at 150 mile an hour. Wind gusts right now are gusting at 185 miles an hour.
So when we say a slight shift to the east
or west,
that
could
make the difference.
Exactly. You could shave 20, 30 mile per hour wind gusts off of that. So it's going to be very dicey now as far as that goes, as far as the city of Orange. But you're talking Deweyville, Mauriceville, right there, Vidor, and that all is going to move right up through Newton County. It's going to be weakening, but you're talking wind gusts 120, 110, 100 as it goes north.
And it's completely conceivable that Newton could have worse winds than Vanette.
Absolutely.
Right? When you start thinking, you mentioned the gradient, that east to west gradient, and we may have places 70 miles from the coast that end up with worse wind damage than parts of coastal Jefferson County.
And when you think about how Beaumont is split up, you have the east end of Beaumont, the west end of Beaumont, so you may even see in the city limits greater damage on one side of the city versus the other.
This is the gradient. Do you see how this gradient is? This is the probability of what we see as far as 74 mile per hour winds, but it shows how the gradient could be. You might have wind gusts of 130 over towards Orange, but back over towards maybe Fanette, wind gusts may only be about 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. Right.
And that's a significant difference,
Very
Patrick.
tight gradient, exactly. But again, like you said, look at the probability. Up in Burkeville, Newton are going to see higher winds than Winnie or High Island, which is along the coastline, and maybe over towards Sea Rim.
Very challenging job you have, Patrick. Very challenging job.
Welcome to my world.
This has been a tricky forecast.
Yeah.
It has. We've watched the models back and forth. And it's interesting, the National Hurricane Center had really locked in on this particular track, the Southeast Texas, Southwest Louisiana track for days, while the Euro ensemble that you guys trust so much.
I love that model, but it was too far to the west.
It was way off.
I will be the first to admit it.
Yeah.
GFS did better on the ensemble this time. And I'll just say in the western Gulf of Mexico, it has a bias to the west. I'm learning stuff.
The model has a bias?
A little bit of a bias, but
that's fake weather. That is fake weather, Patrick.
That is real time, sir. I learn something every time I do this. I'm only going to get better. You may not like my forecast, but we're only going to get better each time. Gain experience, I learn, and I'm going to grow from this.
The model you're only as good as the data you've got in front of you.
I think I'm a little better than that. But anyway.
But in all sincerity, let's kind of group here. It's 9:15. Right. A lot of folks. We do want to let you know, by the way, if you're tuning in, hoping to get coverage of the Republican National Convention, we are streaming that right now, and you should be able to get it from 12 News in that manner. 9:15. We are broadcasting from our remote facility. I'm Jordan Williams alongside Lauren Hensley and Chief Meteorologist Patrick Vaughn. Dejani Garrison will be back here in just a bit as we continue our live coverage through the night. We moved, Lauren, to this safe location so that we could stay on the air and stay with folks even when those extreme winds perhaps come to the Triangle here in the next couple of hours.
Yeah, Jordan, and speaking of movement, you heard a lot about those county and city-run buses. Where did they go? We know that they went to Dallas. We know that they went to Austin. They went to San Antonio. Well, what happened when they got here? Well, I pulled up Jordan Foster's Twitter, and that name sounds familiar. That's because he was a 12 News employee. He's now transferred to our sister station in San Antonio. And Jordan was there at receiving area, at one of the reception areas in San Antonio. So just look at this line of cars. These are people presumably from southeast Texas as well as southwest Louisiana evacuating, making that drive to San Antonio. So according to Jordan, he passed this information to me, about 2,000 evacuees ended up in San Antonio. And I do think we need to get to some new developments.
Yep.
So I'm going to take a pause, send it back to you, Jordan.
Yep, and I understand that Patrick is waving at me from across the studio right now. We have a tornado warning for someone?
Yeah, here's the deal. We're watching this feeder band.
We've got a tornado warning, guys.
Not for southeast Texas, but that is the potential as this drifts on off to the west. The reason I really want to jump on this is to give you a heads up, because this feeder band is going to rotate on in towards the east, over towards say Orange and Jefferson County over the next couple hours. So be aware that we're going to start seeing tornado warnings. I think we're at 9:17. Certainly by about 10 o'clock, we're going to start seeing tornado warnings popping for probably Jefferson and Orange counties in southeast Texas. So don't be surprised as this begins to get closer to the coast. Notice also how fast these reds are rotating around that eye. That is telling us that this storm has got some strong winds, and the reflectivity also going up. You're starting to see more red, you're starting to see more purple. That's telling us this is extremely heavy rainfall, and the winds are the big threat out of this for southeast Texas at this point. I think we're okay as far as storm surge in Beaumont, but the biggest areas that are going to have problems with storm surge, the head of Sabine Lake over towards maybe Bridge City and up the Sabine River, because of water coming in from Cameron Parish and across into the Sabine River.
And Patrick,
from the east.
Patrick, we're watching the outer bands there just across the Lake Sabine.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Let me look at the winds one more time, because this is coming in. This is changing very rapidly and will continue to change very rapidly over the next couple hours as the storm begins to make landfall. And we're going to take a look at the sustained wind speeds when this loads. And looking at right now, okay, so Lake Charles is sustained at 30, and then over towards Port Arthur was at 23, out of the northeast. So you can see counterclockwise, we've got northerly winds here in the triangle. That forces water out. Off towards our west, though, or off to our east, we're going to see those winds come back around to the south and east, and that's what's going to coax that wind to bring in the water off of the Gulf of Mexico, causing that potential for catastrophic storm surge. Cameron's got an east-northeast winds. They're going to be coming around to the southeast pretty soon. Lake Charles, this wind gusts in the last few minutes, 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts. That's tropical storm force winds. So we are likely seeing tropical storm force winds into Cameron Parish, around Cameron, back over towards near Port Arthur, just south of Port Arthur, over towards Sabine Pass, and also probably around Sea Rim State Park, starting to see some tropical storm force wind gusts. So again, things going to be deteriorating over the next couple hours as this storm nears the coastline.
Thank you, sir. We'll check back in just a second. I want to head up to Hardin County right now. As you can see, we have 12 reporter Victoria De Leon standing by live with the Hardin County judge.
I think we don't have audio from Victoria. Victoria, if you can hear me, maybe there's something you can do with your microphone. Victoria is speaking with, here we go.
You guys have been meeting, you and other county leaders all day, having these long conversations. Just today we had a meeting with emergency management. Just tell us what came out of that. What are you guys thinking, and any message residents right now?
So we have several meetings throughout the day. We include all of our county, city, school superintendents, water departments, basically any official throughout the county is participating in those calls. And we're just trying to make sure that if there's any unmet needs that any jurisdiction has, that we have that on our radar and that we get those taken care of as soon as possible so that we can serve the citizens.
Right. And we've been riding around town for a little bit earlier today. Some people are making those last-minute evacuations. Others are saying that they're going to get it out. This is something they're used to. Living in Southeast Texas, I'm sure this is something you're used to too. But for those riding it out and staying in town, what's your message to them?
My message is to them is, of course, they're in our prayers. I want everybody to ride this through safely without any injuries or any fatalities at all whatsoever. That's my hope and prayer. And I just tell each person who's stayed in harm's way, that later tonight conditions are going to get really bad. The weatherman says catastrophic and devastation, and so I just passed that on to them, and they just need to find a safe space in their house away from windows, be ready to go there later tonight, probably around midnight or so, and be ready to stay there for a few hours until the worst of it is over.
Yeah, when the worst of it is over. I know you do have first responders on standby. We have some at the dome near the high school. You know, the ones that are stationed there, I have been reiterating that, you know, it's going to be a while before we can get help out there to people. And, you know, just any safety tips from you as far as, I know we talked about generators earlier earlier tonight.
Right, and bring that up, but our first responders are all still doing their normal job duties. We have some extras the sheriff does out on patrol, all the fire departments do as well. Just making last-minute preparations. The wind speeds have not gotten to the dangerous level yet that makes them have to go in and hunker down and shelter in place. But later tonight, that's going to happen. And, you know, it's always very disheartening when somebody calls 911 and the dispatcher has to tell them nobody's coming. That's it's hard to hear. It's hard to hear on this end just as it is on the other end of the line. So that is a reality, and it's going to happen in Southeast Texas tonight. Somebody's going to need help, and we can't get to them until it's safe to do so. So know that. And then the other thing is about generator safety. Sometime tonight, most, if not all, of Southeast Texas is going to lose power. It's going to be widespread, and it's going to be long-lasting. And people have got those portable generators. They're going to start cranking them up. They want to get their refrigerators and freezers going. Those don't have to be plugged in right away. Let's let the storm pass, and let's put those generators outside, away from the house. Don't have it inside house. Please don't put it on the back patio, a screened-in patio, in the garage, and point that exhaust away from the house, and let's not have any further disasters from something like that that can be prevented.
Absolutely, especially since we'll probably be needing and working with these generators for who knows how long. It could be days, could be weeks. We just never know with these things. And lastly, we are, of course, in the middle of a pandemic. How have any challenges been presented to you, you know, with planning throughout this week and even today, the hours before the storm approaches?
As I'm standing here now, but it's not just that. It's just working close together here in the EOC. We've also faced some challenges. Some of our nursing homes that were evacuating, some of those had a pre-positioned place to go, but once it became real that those nursing homes needed to evacuate, some of the receiving end said, never mind, you got to find some place. So that was a real challenge with some of our nursing homes. I'm sure some of the other nursing homes in Southeast Texas had the same challenge. And honestly, I think I talked to some of you earlier this year about evacuating during COVID, and I just said that I would have a higher threat this year on ordering a mandatory evacuation because of that. And of course, yesterday morning became evident that that had to happen. So it's just been a challenge all the way around. You know, the governor said it yesterday, COVID-19 going anywhere, hurricane, and we've got to remember that. And you know, when you're working close together like a family and an EOC like we are here and all over other areas of the counties and the region, it just becomes harder and harder to practice social distancing and do the things that we need to be doing. But we've got to remember that.
Yeah, and of course, safety is always going to come first. But like we said, it's about 9 o'clock-ish. I'm not sure what time it is right now, but getting closer and closer to Laura's landfall. So this is really the time, if you did stay in Southeast Texas, this is the time to start, you know, hunkering down at home, making sure you're not out on the roads, and just staying safe. Any last messages to the people of Southeast Texas?
I think we said it. Just once again, I just want to say how much that everyone in Southeast Texas, especially our Hardin County neighbors, they're in our thoughts, they're in our prayers. Of course, after the storm passes, we'll be putting information out where citizens can start reporting damage assessments electronically, including pictures and all of the data regarding their self-reporting of damages. And another thing I want to bring up is we're going to be out there clearing trees. A lot of people will. Some of them will be professionals. Some of them will be homeowners clearing their driveway or what have you, or just getting out on the road and helping their neighbor. Chainsaw safety. Please be very careful, because if you get injured, it may take you a while to get yourself to the hospital, and it may take a lot. If you're an ambulance, one may not be able to get to you. So practice that safety as well.
Yeah, so of course, like I said, there's COVID safety and there's the safety that comes with riding out these hurricanes if you did decide to stay. But again, you know, just stay safe, you guys, and I'll send it back to you in studio.
Victoria De Leon alongside County Judge Wayne McDaniel, reporting live tonight from Kuntz, the Emergency Operations Center there in county. Victoria, thank you so much. Okay, I'm getting some new information. Let's talk right now about the 3 things that you need to know. First off, the landfall from this monster of a storm will be happening in the next couple of hours in southwest Louisiana. Number 2, as you heard, officials have hunkered down. They are waiting for the storm to hit. Number 3, life-threatening conditions are likely. Lake Charles could bear the brunt of this storm's impact. So those are 3 things that we're tracking as we approach 27 minutes after 9 o'clock. Live coverage continuing from 12 News on air and online. Lauren Hindley is with me as well tonight, monitoring some of the social media posts as we track Laura together.
Yeah, and speaking of evacuations, Jordan, Jefferson County Judge Jeff Brannick, he said 9 o'clock was the cutoff he expected. So it's kind of too late if you're trying to evacuate. Your best bet now is to hunker down. Now, for folks who did evacuate, what happened to them? Well, we have a look at those who were sent to San Antonio, what that looked like. Jordan Foster, he was a reporter here at 12 News. He's now with our sister station, Ken's 5 in San Antonio. And I'm going to go ahead and enlarge this video over on his Twitter page. So this is the line of cars that made its way from Southeast Texas to the reception center in San Antonio. Jordan Foster spoke with many of these people, a lot of them from the Beaumont and Port Arthur area. They spent the entire day in their cars, and then they were greeted with a long line. So he said as of this afternoon, there were about just under 2,000 evacuees who made it to this location in San Antonio. He said he spoke with many people who said they just simply felt it was the right thing to do to get out. They wanted to get out half of destruction, and they said they felt like this was the right decision for them and their families. Many of these people were welcomed at the center itself. Now, what happened if there was an overflow? Because, you know, we're still in a pandemic. Those folks were given hotel vouchers, and they were then staying the night in hotels near this center. So again, a lot of these folks from the Beaumont, Port Arthur area. I want to get to one other thing very quickly. So maybe about 30 minutes ago, we told you in the Lake Charles area, a portion of I-10 was shut down. As you just heard Jordan say, Lake Charles could take the brunt of this. It could take the eye of that Hurricane Laura. So here's a look at that road closure. You can see the roads blackened right here, and the warning message coming from the Louisiana Department of Transportation.
Yep.
They're telling people closure on I-10 both directions from Lake Charles 30 to Ryan Street 28 closed. So we're going to continue monitoring this. And as we start to evaluate the damage and the destruction tomorrow morning, we may be anticipating more road closures depending on what that hurricane does. And we know you folks, that's important information for a lot of you, because there are so many folks who cross I-10 here to get into Vinton or even Sulphur or even Lake Charles. A lot of folks who work in the oil and gas industry. So we know you're dependent on that information. That's something we're going to monitor in the hours and even the days to come. So Patrick, I'm not sure if he's quite ready yet. So, is he giving me a nod? So let's send things over to Patrick Vaughn with the very latest with Laura.
Just looking at latest as far as radar image, looks like it's about 60, the edge of the eye wall. Let me go back to that. It's about 60 miles offshore from Cameron, Louisiana, moving to north-northwest. Put a track on it. And here we go from about Cameron to the eye wall is about 40 miles away. Center of circulation, though, is a little further at about roughly about 60 miles, I believe. So the eye, about 30 miles wide in diameter. Again, don't go out in the eye because you got the back edge of the storm head over your area. Looks like Cameron may be a little to the left of that. So that means that with this track, this is going to take the eye, or at least the eye wall, right over orange. So if you're dealing with 150 mile per hour winds and gusts to 185 miles an hour, I think 130, 140 mile per hour winds are possible in orange now.
Oh.
Yeah. So here's where we're at right now.
Remind people, if you will, I know you're flipping over to watch the Doppler winds.
Yep.
But we do have those tornado warnings, and that may be what you're checking right there.
Yeah, let me go back. It's because of these, let me stop this, but it's because of these feeder bands. That's what is rotating on in and causing the potential for these these quick spin ups along the feeder bands. But as you can see, this is a feeder band rotating around the main trunk of the storm. That's what is producing those bands of, or at least get it out, the tornado warnings. Thank you. And so again, this is the gustiness that we're talking about. You'll see a feeder band like this, a feeder band like this. In between those feeder bands, the rain will decrease, the winds will decrease, and that's what causes the gustiness. That's what caused so many trees to come down in Rita, because the winds will go up, 100, 120, 130 miles an hour, and between the moats, that's where the areas of the rain are not there, the winds will go back down to 70 or 80 miles an hour. So that back and forth is what causes metal fatigue, because of the back and forth rocking. That's where you get signs down. That's where you get metal fatigue and structural failure. And it also produces a lot of damage to trees, because they can't, after a while, continue with that rocking or back and forth motion. So that's the gustiness. So you might be at 80 miles an hour and then gust to 120. So the back and forth is what causes the signs to fail and to see structural failure as far as that, and also foliage. Let me look at the Doppler winds. We've got easterly wind into Lake Charles, and just looking at some of the information here. Yeah, this is at probably 12,000 feet. We're measuring winds of 128 miles an hour at that particular location from Doppler radar. I'm able to basically estimate the wind speeds from Doppler radar. But let me look at a different source. So we're looking at the eye out Gulf of Mexico, which is about 40 miles offshore. Ugh, this is ugly signature. And let me clear this real quick, because I'm looking at different information.
And it's important for Patrick to do this, but and when we're on the air and stop, sometimes he's got to do it while we're broadcasting. So folks, you're going to see him adjusting the radar. This is not what we're used to seeing, but this is sort of the behind the story that the meteorologists need to really look inside the storm in which direction the winds are and where that shift is. And that's what you're seeing again between the red and the green, moving right now across southwest Louisiana.
I'm getting 168 miles per hour just in this area, right? 168 miles an hour is what I'm getting. Unbelievable.
Patrick, you've been talking about how catastrophic, and that is not a word we use lightly, how catastrophic the damage could be in southwestern Louisiana. Louisiana's Governor Edwards has just said that I-10, of course, which is now closed in the Lake Charles area, they're thinking, quote, that Cameron Parish is going to look like an extension of the Gulf of Mexico for a couple of days. That much salter, that far inland.
The entire parish will go under water. That's how serious. If anybody, I pray to God that nobody stayed. Anyway, we're looking at Doppler radar, and I'm just looking at some of the information. These are the sustained winds anywhere between 23 in Port Arthur and 30. But as you can see, the purple at the bottom, that is when we start seeing the tropical storm force winds. Let's go to gusts, and this is still not changed. Still 31 mile per hour wind gust in Port Arthur, orange 40 in Lake Charles. Cameron probably seeing sustained winds of tropical storm, and I think that's the case over to Sabine Pass, but that's just an estimate on my part. I do think that these numbers are going to change rapidly over the next couple of hours. We're what? Let me go back to radar. There's new tornado watch until 8 a.m. No surprise with a superstorm like this.
There's some chatter on Twitter among your meteorological colleagues that they could still push and make it a Cat 5.
Yeah, I think so. That's really possible. I wouldn't be surprised.
The next advisory should be coming down here in the next about 15 minutes, right ahead the top of the hour.
Yeah, 50. Well, I can get it about 53 after the hour. Let me pause this. trying to give an estimate on how long we should until we start seeing tropical storm force winds. I think they're going to be. Let me do it in Beaumont, and within the hour maybe in Beaumont, and then I think hurricane force winds, say Port Arthur. Let's see, probably 2 hours from now. Yeah, midnight, Port Arthur, Orange, just after midnight, probably 1. So you're looking at after about 11:30, hurricane force winds will start affecting the triangle.
Some new information about TxDOT, and as we can keep the radar up, I'm going to read this. This is out of TxDOT's headquarters. Dejanique Garrison is with me as well now, and she know more about this. But I am going to pass along this information as I'm reading it. I-10 is closed in both directions at the state line. And they're actually suggesting that folks who may be traveling across Texas to take I-35 up to I-20 in Dallas, an alternate route. You're seeing it there on the screen. I-10 eastbound closed at the sign, I-10 westbound at the Atchafalaya Basin. And you see some of the detours. I was reading the one from TxDOT headquarters. They're suggesting taking I-10 up to US 61, I-55, I-59. So, I mean, this is going to reroute traffic over this entire quadrant of the country. So bear with us as we learn more about the extent of that closure. But suffice it to say, Patrick, this is all because of the serious concerns with the storm surge in Louisiana, and they don't want people to get stuck in this.
Yeah.
I mean, you can imagine it's almost impossible. If you don't shut down the road, there's still going to be some travelers out there.
This is so serious that they've evacuated the National Weather Service in Lake Charles, their site there just south of town. And that location where their radome is about going to be 9 feet underwater. So it's going to be interesting to see. 9 feet underwater is what they're looking at over at Lake Charles Airport. There is what it could be.
So we would start getting radar data potentially out of Houston?
If we lost the radar out of Lake Charles, we'd get it out of Houston, which is fine. We're fine. That's the beauty of living Southeast Texas. And actually, we can get it from Fort Polk, too.
Right. So that'll start taking over as it moves north.
Exactly. Three local sites here that are fine, the best radars in the world. And we're fine as far as that goes. But again, this does look like it's going to go very close to Cameron.
Very close.
Again, I'm just very, very, very concerned about Orange County.
They don't. We don't have the levee there. There is no seawall.
Yeah, but they're going to have they have north winds now, and they will. And the thing is that they're not going to get flooding coming up like I thought because I thought the storm would be further west.
Right.
So the water is not going to come up through the Sabine from the south. The water is going to come in from Cameron Parish from the south and east, flooding into Orange County. That's where the water's coming from because of the flow around the storm. Because Cameron Parish is going to go under, and that water is going to be pushed from the east into Orange County, over to Bridge City and back over in towards and along the Sabine River. Amazing. Simply amazing. And that water is going to continue to be funneled up all the way to I-10. Right there in Orange County, Vinton, Sulphur, Iowa, back over towards Carlos, Lake Charles, catastrophic flooding. We're talking parts of Lake Charles 6, 7, 8, 9 feet underwater.
This is not a worst case scenario. This could be just reality at this point.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
this is what we're expecting.
Right.
The homes. Let me just let's look at the storm surge real quick. Let's see if that graphic is the new data in. Again, if you're just joining us, winds are at 150 miles an hour. There's potential. This could become a Cat 5. So again, the water that you're seeing over along the state line and back over towards Orange County, this right here is not coming in off the Gulf of Mexico. This water is going to be orbiting around the eye and pushed in from the east because Cameron Parish is going underwater. That's where the water's coming from. Unbelievable. So as the storm moves to the north and west, because it's such a low area there, that means that I-10 is going to go underwater from basically the state line, probably Vinton, over to Sulphur, Carlos, Lake Charles. This water is also because you are looking at southerly winds here from Cameron on off to the east. This is a wonderful, this is a natural funnel to where if you got south winds off the Gulf of Mexico, where is my eraser? There we go. That's what I want. South winds off the Gulf of Mexico, where is that water going to go? It's going to go right on in to a natural, look at the shape of this lake. It's a funnel. All that's going to go right on in to Big Lake is what we call it, and go into the Bayou Chupik, and right on into Carlos. Let me zoom in a little closer. This is a different system. I'm having a little strain here, but as you can see, that's all going to be funneled. 210 underwater, Highway 14 underwater, Lake Arthur underwater. Let's see, Lake Charles, serious flooding. Let me go and show, because my dad lives in Lake Charles, and
has he left?
Oh yes, they're over in Central Texas right now. They're probably watching me right now. But Dad, if you're watching, this is over towards. Let me zoom into to the Contraband Bayou right there. That's going to be 9 feet underwater. We're hoping that that doesn't get the house, but that is very plausible in Lake Charles. This is going to cause catastrophic flooding that could affect also Westlake, Sulphur, and then it's going to be shoved further north up the Calcasieu River and on into the Houston River. Moss Bluff seriously affected, if not catastrophically affected. So this is a life and death weather situation right now. It's that serious. You still have time, I think, to maybe go up 171 and try to get out if you have not taken the advice yet.
South Texas friends, we know so many of you have friends and family in Southwest Louisiana. I would certainly encourage you to get on the phone with them and try to convince them. Sometimes an extra phone call will offer the encouragement that they need to leave.
So they may be thinking that they're fine right now. You know, it's coming in, but you know what? The storm has not really affected it. Look at all the tornado warnings. They're just coming left and right because of these feeder bands. This is only going to be only going to increase over the next 3, 4, 5 hours as the storm begins to approach the land. Every one of these feeder bands is going to cause tornado warnings. So again, you still have some time to take go up 171, 165, trying to get out of Southwest Louisiana. I hope you'll do that. Please don't stay if you're in Southwest Louisiana, into Calcasieu, Jeff Davis, Cameron, Jeff Davis, and back over to Vermilion Parish, Kate Parish. If you're watching us, get away from this storm. Move north as quickly as possible.
Heed the warning. Dejanique is back with us tonight. We are glad for that. And she's over at the big board, keeping tabs on number one, the traffic situation that we're talking about. Not that people are on the roads right now, but this is going to have lasting impacts for anyone who's going to need to travel east-west, perhaps for a long time.
That's correct. As soon as I opened Twitter, of course, lots of notifications talking about the roads, bridges, and highways that will be closed. But I saw this, and I wanted to point it out before I moved on to that particular direction. This is the Mississippi River. Patrick, I want you to look at the screen really quickly. It's saying Hurricane Laura is forcing the Mississippi to follow north instead of south. Barges are now having to fight these tides as they go downriver. Surreal.
Was today?
Correct.
That was well ahead of the storm.
Correct. So when we talk about the power of the winds that this storm packs, just kind of put that into perspective with what we're seeing with the river.
So this was hours. This is before sunset this evening, okay? The power of wind on water. Think about that. The mighty Mississippi, the flow was reversed.
Right.
Think about that.
Right.
And we're talking about a storm that has only gotten stronger over the last few hours and is approaching Cat 5 status with winds gusting 175 to maybe 100 miles an hour. And people are thinking about staying in Lake Charles or Cameron Parish or Vermilion Parish. Not going to happen.
It's going to be tough stuff. And if this into the Mississippi River, imagine what it can do to a structure. a home. And I think that's the point that the officials trying to drive home for the last 48 hours, as it became very apparent the strength that this storm was going to acquire as it made its way up the Gulf of Mexico. So I thought that was very interesting, and it was just to kind of put into perspective the strength of this storm, Patrick.
Yeah, and when you have water that is driven by the strength of the wind, the power of the wind with the water. Water is a very powerful medium.
Absolutely.
And, you know, when you take something that is maybe weighs 1,300 pounds per, I'm going to have to look it up. I think it weighs 1,300 pounds per cubic yard. I believe that's the case.
That's impressive.
It's been a while. I don't look at those numbers as much, and please forgive me. I remember the 1,300 pounds. I just can't remember if it's a cubic yard.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll have to look it up. But anyway, you take that piece of water and you slam it up against a building, you know, and it's moving maybe 30 or 40 miles an hour, and bash it with waves hour after hour after hour. That's what's going to drive or bring down structures and things of that nature.
Even those that are structurally sound, it's no competition with Mother Nature as if to blow. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of those road closures that we mentioned at the top of this particular segment. Just want to circle back to that text dot information. Very, very important, saying that if you're trying to travel to or from Louisiana, here's some alternate routes, because I-10 eastbound at the Texas-Louisiana state line is closed. This didn't come as a surprise to us because this storm isn't to hit on the Gulf Coast. Around that particular area, Patrick is saying the interstate may be covered with water in just a few hours in that area. So it was very wise to go ahead and close that down right now. I-10 westbound is closed west of the Atchafalaya Basin. Detour north to I-20 by using US 61, I-55, and I-59. Told you guys a little while ago that there are some important websites that you should probably bookmark as we go into recovery mode, as you're trying to get home, as you're trying to figure out whether or not you have power. TextDot is one of those, because they also have that drivetexas.org tool. We swear by this. This is the holy grail when it comes to trying to navigate during a natural disaster. Right now, the map looks clear, but as we start to see those trees come down, the wind damage, things of that nature, this map is going to start to light up. You'll see red lines. That means there's some type of issue, whether it's an obstruction, whether there's flooding, there's something that's preventing you from going that particular route. And as people try and make their way back to Southeast Texas, that's what you need to watch out for, so you can take an alternate route to you and your families home without having to sit in traffic or without having to turn back around pretty much because of the damage that the storm has left. So drivetexas.org is one of those you should keep in the back of your pocket. I also want to go to Galveston County Office of Emergency Management. They have a highway notification for us. State Highway 87 on the Bolivar Peninsula now impassable. And I continue to bring up this particular area because we know how often folks in Southeast Texas frequent the Bolivar Peninsula just to kind of have some leisure, or you may work in the area. So I think it's important for you to know the current conditions there as well. Again, as conditions continue to develop throughout the evening, we're just maybe less than a couple of hours away from this thing really making landfall and us starting to feel some of those impacts. Make sure that you are following us on our YouTube channel. That's where we will stream throughout the entirety of this natural disaster. 12 News Now is what you need to type into the search bar. Go ahead, hit that red subscribe button, and then click live now. You'll be able to get the stream anywhere you are in the country. You can't sit in front of your television, whether you're in the car, a hotel room, or with family and friends seeking shelter. You'll be able to catch us 24/7, and we will keep you updated on the current conditions. Jordan.
Dejanique, we are 10 minutes away from the top of the hour. We do want to remind you we are awaiting the new 10 p.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center. Patrick is watching his computer as we speak. The new data should be coming in the next 2 to 3 minutes. While we await that and whether or not Laura will officially become a Category 5 storm, I want to send it over to 12 News reporter Jordan James. He spent the evening up in Hardin County, where not everyone has chosen to leave.
We're a few hours away from Hurricane Laura making landfall near the Texas-Louisiana border. Anxiety is growing across Hardin County for one woman as she prepares to deal with her first hurricane. Shannon Giffen is among the many in Hardin County who has decided to ride the storm out. She says being a mother with dementia is her reasoning for not wanting to evacuate like some. Hurricane Laura marks her first time dealing with the hurricane after moving from another state. She says the uncertainty of Laura has left her very worried.
For me, it's the winds. I keep hearing how bad the winds are going to be, and people tell me how bad it was during Rita. My sister lived here during Rita and actually evacuated to where we used to live, so it kind of has me scared. Hope for the best, you know, that's all I can do. Put my faith in God and pray that He keeps us all safe.
Emergency personnel will not be available after winds top 35 miles per hour to help those who have decided to stay back despite a mandatory evacuation order in place. Hurricane Laura is expected to make landfall just after midnight. Power outages are also expected with winds chopping 100 miles per hour. Reporting here in Hardin County, Jordan James, 12 News.
Jordan, thank you with that fresh perspective tonight. As he was saying, not everyone has chosen to leave, and we are thinking of everyone who's watching us from home tonight. Here is the latest. We are awaiting the 10 p.m. update from the National Hurricane Center, and whether or not, as I said, Laura will be knocked up a Category 4 storm. We shall see.
That's what we're hoping that doesn't happen.
To a Category 5. I'm sorry, I think I said 4. Already very much a very strong Category 4 storm, a major hurricane. Patrick, I was just reading that this will now be added to the list of hurricane names that will be retired. Likely, Laura. Well, there will likely never be another Laura.
Right. That's amazing that they're already planning. There you go. There's the 10 o'clock, still at 150 mile per hour.
There it is, folks.
It just came in. See where we're going to deal. Yeah, looks like right around Cameron, just a little left. So not much of a change. Now, does it go over Newton County? Okay, so it has shifted a little bit towards the east. Better news for Orange. Still going over north. Oh, it's a lot faster of a weakening trend.
A lot faster weakening.
Well, let's see. I'm not sure about that. I think the data's still coming in.
Okay.
Let me update this.
Yep.
As this is coming in, but it does. No, the track is here. The track has come in, and it does look like a better scenario for Orange. I still think just a guesstimate on this, just an eyeball on this. I still think that Orange is going to see good 120, 130 mile per hour wind gusts. Maybe not the 150, 160, 170 mile per hour wind gusts, because I still think it'll be around 100 and let's see. I'd say probably by the time it gets parallel to Orange along I-10, it probably will have sustained winds of 130. So it's going to rapidly weaken when it goes onshore from a Cat 4 to a Cat 3. It should be maybe a Cat 3 by I-10 time, and then continuing to a Cat 1 or 2 up in the lakes area.
I have a curious question while you update your data.
Yep.
I'm seeing that the northern eye wall of Hurricane Laura is roughly 25 miles from the coast at this point.
Let's see.
At what point did they just say, okay, is it when the first part of the eye wall that crossed the coast, is that when they officially record the landfall? Or does the eye have to be centered over the coast?
I think it's that's a good question. I'm not quite entirely sure, and I don't want to steer you the wrong way. I've always thought whenever the eye starts touching the coast, that's when I think it makes landfall. That's me. I may be wrong, but
it's understood. No, it's
that's what I look for.
And as Patrick looks for that new data, again, he's updating the track because the 10 p.m. advisory. You're good to do that. We may watch you here while you work.
Yeah. This is like what? This is still about 35 miles from the coast over towards Cameron. Sabine Pass is what? About 45 miles from the eye wall. And see.
This is so close for us.
Yep. So winds hurricane force are going to be extending out probably 25 miles to the northwest, lesser out to the southwest, and probably a good 50 to 60 miles. I say that. I'm just looking at data right now. Let me update this right here and loop that.
Just a couple of minutes away from the top of the hour, folks, and we are going to reset for those of you who are just tuning in to watch 12 News at 10. We are broadcasting on air and online, the networks of 12 News on our ABC and NBC affiliates, and of course on our 12 News Now app and on YouTube. And I believe we're streaming on Twitter Live right now. So if you or your loved ones are not at home, your family's maybe in Central Texas right now, let them know they can watch us, and we're going to be on the air. Dejanique, we have been on the air since 10 a.m. nonstop this morning, bringing you the very latest on the path of Laura. Just a couple of minutes away from 10 o'clock, the new data has come in. We're watching Patrick update the forecast cone as the data comes in from the National Hurricane Center. Not a real change in the landfall. Still expected here around 1 o'clock. So in roughly 3 hours.
And Jordan, as we are taking a look at what's to come, I was just Googling hurricanes with retired names. Because this is something that we are going to witness. You know, people keep saying 2020 has really thrown us some curveballs, and here's yet another one, a hurricane so long that the name is forced to be retired. So I was just looking at some of those names.
Before it even makes landfall.
Before it even makes landfall, Patrick. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
No.
No.
Well, there's that speculation. You can't believe everything. I cannot verify that. That was from a meteorologist at one of our sister stations.
That's a good point. Yeah,
but there you go.
It's a pretty good bet.
It's a pretty good bet when you've got a strong storm like this. Minutes away from the top of the hour, again, we are going to be pausing to restart, you might say, our coverage. So bear with us. You're watching online. There may be a slight pause while we begin our 10 o'clock hour, which would be hour 12 of nonstop coverage. You know, we take our motto, putting Southeast Texas first, quite seriously here at 12 News, and it's all about your family and your safety at this point. You know, Dejanique, I feel like, and Patrick chime in here as well, we've done everything we can to be realistic and honest and not, we're not about the hype. That's not who we are as a news organization or the 12 News Storm Trackers. We're the hurricane headquarters, yes, but we've just been trying to pass along that information to you tonight and throughout the duration of this storm. And the storm surge for Southwest Louisiana really could be extremely terrible.
Absolutely. And it's not just the folks here at 12 News saying that. It's pretty much the consensus across the board when you look at the professional meteorologists who've been tracking this system for days, if not over a week at this point. Once we realized you had those twin storms in the Gulf, remember Marco, who's even thinking about Marco at this point, ended up kind of dissipating as it made its way to the Louisiana coast. Brought some wind and some rain, but nothing to write home about, if you will. But then Laura just started to look like it was really going to take form. It was a tricky forecast. It was a little back and forth, and I know that was frustrating for a lot of people. But that's the power of Mother Nature, and that's the name of the game during hurricane season. It's not a perfect science. But then as the days started to get closer, the models started to become a little more uniform. And we saw that Southeast Texas was going to be that cone of uncertainty, prompting those mandatory evacuations across the entire region of Southeast Texas, something that we have seen in nearly a decade.
Folks, we're going to pause right now, 10 a.m. News is your hurricane headquarters. Good evening, everybody. 10 o'clock tonight, and this is a special edition of 12 News at 10. I'm Jordan Williams alongside Dejanique Garrison, broadcasting from our remote facility as we track Hurricane Laura, now just 3 hours away from making landfall in extreme southern Louisiana. And Dejanique, by all accounts, this storm packing 150-mile winds could produce devastating damage for a large portion of that state. And across Southeast Texas, we may have extreme problems because of power outages.
Absolutely. Thinking of some of the adjectives we've been hearing tonight, catastrophic, unprecedented. These are things that you don't hear very often, especially coming from our chief meteorologist, Patrick Vaughn. He is busy in our Storm Tracker Center to give you the very latest information. At last check, that system had jogged a bit to the east. Little better news for Southeast Texas, but by no means are we out of the cone of uncertainty as it pertains to the effects of this storm?
Certainly not. Here are 3 things to know as you come on the air with us tonight. Number 1, a landfall from Laura. This is a monster-sized storm. Again, expected shortly, less than 3 hours away at this point. We've got the storm roughly 35 miles from the coastline there in southwest Louisiana. Officials are hunkered down there at their emergency operations centers. As these tropical storm force winds increase around southeast Texas, they're going to stop answering 911 calls. They'll answer, but the officers are not going to be able to respond. Life-threatening conditions are likely. Lake Charles expected to take the brunt of this storm. So let's get to our Storm Tracker Center. As Dejanique mentioned, Chief Meteorologist Patrick Vaughn is with us. There's a live look at the radar, Patrick. We also have tornado warnings across southwest Louisiana.
And that's to be expected. Anytime you have a landfalling hurricane, you get these feeder bands, and they can spin up short-lived tornadoes very quickly, and that's why there are tornado warnings being issued. This will likely continue overnight, and as these feeder bands rotate into eastern portions of Jefferson and Orange counties, we will likely see tornado warnings issued for portions of our viewing area. All the area is under a tornado watch overnight. Let's show you that the eye continues to move off towards the north and northwest at around 15 miles an hour. Let's take a look at the winds. And the sustained wind speeds, 21 mile per hour into Port Arthur, 32 into Lake Charles. And Cameron is missing, unfortunately. We don't have wind speed for that. As far as wind gusts, there we go. 45 in Lake Charles, 39 in Port Arthur. That's it. 39 mile per hour wind gusts. Tropical storm winds have now arrived in southeast Texas. They will only go upwards from here as the hurricane continues to further and closer towards landfall. And that looks like roughly around midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, as Laura is likely to produce tornadoes. A tornado watch is in effect all night long tonight through 8 a.m. in southeast Texas. So here we go. Eye on the Gulf. The eye looks like it's roughly, let's take a track on this, and then the eye wall is roughly about 30 miles, roughly 25 to 30 miles away from a landfall in through Cameron Parish. So again, the hurricane force winds are probably going to be extended outwards anywhere from 30 to 60 nautical miles, depending on which side of the storm you're on. But again, very concentric ball-like structure in the satellite. And you can see also, you get these little striations, these bands within the convective plume around the eye. Kind of hard to see. Supercell, without a doubt, right there. But these bands, these striations are telling me it's transverse banding, and what that means is that the strength of the storm, it's in an ideal situation as far as further strength still possible, even before it makes landfall. Regardless,
in the next hour or two here,
probably 2 hours, because let's see, if we're looking at Cameron. It's moving 15 miles an hour. You're looking at hours from here. So midnight. Okay. 2 hours to see at 15 miles an hour to the north and northwest. Still hurricane warning in effect from the west end of Galveston Island near Freeport back over towards Intercoastal City. Forecast to make landfall as a Cat 4 with winds of 150 miles an hour and then head towards right over Newton. Looks like it'll be at 110 mile per hour wind sustained over Newton, Texas, and Newton County by 7 a.m. So again, Beaumont, I think, could see still wind gusts 80, 90, maybe 100 miles an hour. But if you get over towards Orange, still 130, 140 mile per hour, possibly higher wind gusts. It just depends on the exact track of that eyeball. As far as storm surge, I think we are looking at a lot better scenario for the most part in southeast Texas. And as I have been discussing, this is going to be catastrophic storm surge in west Louisiana. It just, these cities of Sulphur, Lake Charles, Moss Bluff, Lake, Carlos, there may not be much left after this comes through. I'm totally wrong, because the funneling effect of Big Lake is going to cause catastrophic flooding, probably 15 to 20 feet to move inland. And you're looking at all this orange is greater than 9 feet. That's above ground. That's how deep the water is going to get.
And folks, if you're just tuning in, to give you some perspective, the meteorologists that man the National Weather Service office in Lake Charles have evacuated. Patrick's saying it's possible that radar in Lake Charles that we typically use here in our part of the country may very well itself go underwater here in just a bit. Patrick, I'm going to pause you if I may for just a second, sir. We've got Jordan James standing by, 12 News reporter Jordan James, up in Hardin County tonight, which is also, Jordan, under that mandatory evacuation. I know you guys have been visiting with the Hardin County judge. Set the scene for what's the mood?
Yeah, Hurricane Laura inches closer to southeast Texas. Anticipation continues to grow here among Hardin County leaders about the impact that Laura will leave. Right now, they're listening to a call from the National Weather Service Center about the track that Laura will take. Just being out here all day, we've seen several businesses build up, and also some people are choosing to ride the storm out for different reasons. One told me she's riding the storm out because she didn't want to uproot her family, saying they've been through a hurricane before, they can make it through this one. One of the concerns among county leaders is the winds that are expected to come, Laura. With high winds, that means there's a chance for power outages, and folks can be for several hours, up to several days. For those people who are choosing to ride the storm out, it's best they go to the interior parts of their homes once those winds up. Hardin County Judge Wayne McDaniel tells me one of his biggest concerns that folks chose not to leave with a mandatory evacuation in place. As I've told you, several people have decided to stay for various reasons. But if you are here, be getting ready to take shelter as winds are expected to pick up here in the next few hours. That's the latest here from Hardin Operations Center. Jordan James, 12 News.
All right, Jordan, with us. Are you in Coons? Is that where the Operations Center is?
Yes, it's at Hardin County Courthouse in Coons.
So you guys are very much in a safe spot there. I know that courthouse. It is a strong building.
Yes, Hardin County leaders have assured us that this building, the majority of their county leaders will be here through the night, and we'll be here as well, keeping everyone across southeast Texas informed about the impact that Laura has here across me.
All right, as you get any new information from Judge Wayne McDaniel, pass it along to us, Jordan. We will check back with you in just a bit. Now, my colleague here at a remote facility, Dejanique Garrison, is tracking what's happening over in Galveston County. I want to bring in Dej now to get some more perspective. Dej, we know the folks there in Galveston have been so concerned, and we've already got problems with her along Highway 87.
We definitely know they've been concerned all day long. We've been sieges coming out of Galveston County since early afternoon. The water, just as I referred to it, dancing around as that wind started to pick up. And got this alert from the Office of Emergency Management saying State Highway 87 on the Bolivar Peninsula is now impassable, asking you to head to drivetech.org to find some alternate routes and to let you know once would be a route that you would be able to take again. But something we anticipate seeing in the coming days. This is going to norm as this storm makes its way through the area. You are going to see you're going to see flooded roadways. And so drivetexas.org is going to be extremely important. We want to send it to Grace White. She's been in Galveston. She's been at storm surge that we've been discussing for the majority of today. Latest info.
I'm Grace White in Galveston. Hurricane Laura is expected to fall later tonight along the Texas-Louisiana border, and wind here in Galveston are really picking up. The island's under a mandatory evacuation, and it's officially out of the cone, which is the good news. City leaders here tell us they are still watching this very closely through the night. Mandatory evacuations are in place, which means you'll lose emergency services, trucks, and ambulances until the storm passes tomorrow morning. They're very concerned about storm surge and wind damage. We'll be watching it. Back to you.
Grace White with that fresh perspective from Galveston. Folks there have got to be feeling a bit better as we've watched Hurricane Laura turn more to the north. We have 12 News reporter Luis De Leon, who is with us in Beaumont this evening. He's been around the area of 69 and Highway 105 there on the north end of town. Let's see where he is now. Luis. Not sure we have Luis. Luis, I can see you. Give us just a second. We're going to reestablish with you here. Luis, we're going to work to get your audio. Do we have that?
Is my mic on?
There we go, sir. We have you.
Okay, you do have me.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So we are in the parking lot of Market Basket. We came to you there earlier. The wind has started to pick up quite a bit. My photographer, Hickey Masson, actually lost his umbrella, flew across the street not too long ago, just as an example. Some raindrops trying to come down as well. This is probably the windiest that we've actually seen it at in our time that we've been here. Even when we were in Port Arthur up against the seawall there, granted, it was a lot earlier in the day. I want to break down for you everything that we have seen. We arrived here at around noon yesterday. And so the video that you should be seeing here is yesterday outside of an Academy Sports and Outdoors. They closed up right at noon today, and people made the dash to get in and out of the store for those last seconds. Now, later that day, we went to downtown Beaumont to find buses shuttling inmates back and forth from the Jefferson County Correctional Facility in South Beaumont of Highway 69 up to the Jefferson County Jail. The sheriff told us much more stable and safer for the inmates and employees overall. Take a listen.
Well, you just got to help out. Got to help out. You know, the phone companies are all going to need power tomorrow to keep the communications going, which is important.
All right, sorry about that. That's the wrong shot there, but that's okay. Also saw a lot of buses staged around the city to help with evacuations. We made it to the Port Arthur seawall there. You can probably see on your screen much of yesterday and today, keeping eyes on the water and the town around it. It's a wall that's protected so many people that lived right behind that seawall for so long. And a lot of the residents spoke to actually did say that they're going to be hunkering down there, saying that they're prepared.
Luis, live with us from Beaumont tonight. We thank you so much for the perspective. We can see the wind picking up behind him. We know that he and his crew will be moving to a safe spot here as the conditions intensify a bit. Luis, you've got a close hotel, I think, to seek shelter at, right?
We do. We're right across the street from our shelter, so no worries about that. We're going to stay out here just for a little bit longer to keep an eye on the wind. We'll be heading back soon, though, and we'll be able to handle things from there.
Luis De Leon from our sister station helping us out tonight live in Beaumont. Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate that and the perspective from others who have, as you heard, chosen in some cases to stay in town during this storm. Dejanique is back as well. Dej, I know you've been monitoring what people have been posting to social media. At this late hours, it gets dark. It gets kind of scary. I mean, you have a monster of a storm right off the coast, roughly 40 miles from Sabine Pass. I mean, we in Jefferson and Orange counties still a significant threat from wind damage.
Absolutely, and I've been comparing notes with a lot of folks that are in Southeast Texas, especially those who decided to stay. I sent a few messages out to say, hey, first of all, I want to make sure you feel secure in the decision and in the space you've decided to stay. And if so, just kind of communicate with me back and forth throughout the night as this system makes its way through Southeast Texas. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? How are you feeling? And I'm already starting to get some sending messages saying that the winds are picking up within the triangle. It's 10:15. That just goes to show you not even the brunt of that storm has made its way to our area just yet, and people are already starting to feel the effects. So this is probably something that, of course, is going to intensify as the night goes on. And it's scary when you have something like this happening when it's dark outside. Most folks are sleeping. That howling wind is definitely something that could wake you up, especially if it starts to bring down the trees in your neighborhood. So if you are still in Southeast Texas, just be aware those are things that you may experience in the coming hours, and just try and be in the safest space as possible. That most interior room of your home. Try to stay away from windows. A lot of the same instructions that you'd find with the tornado warning. Try and do that same thing right now. A few pages I just want to go over as I've been thumbing through Twitter for the past couple of minutes. The national hurricanes, we've been following them extensively. And just to reiterate that last advisory that came in a couple of minutes ago, extremely dangerous Hurricane Laura closing in on the northwest Gulf Coast. Catastrophic. There's that adjective we mentioned. The storm surge, extreme winds, flash flooding expected tonight, early into Thursday. The good news is this storm is supposed to move quickly, but it's going to leave behind something that we won't forget. This is Marcelino Benito out of Houston, and he took this about 10-15 minutes ago. This is a look at Galveston saying no rain, but similar to folks in Southeast Texas, the winds are starting to pick up. So we're feeling those effects from this particular storm. Wanted to jump to Houston, the office of Judge Lena Hidalgo. This evening, she told the staging site at NRG, and this is important because she says hundreds of first responders from all over the country are staging at NRG, and as soon as the storm passes, they are gassing up and they're heading out Southeast Texas and into Louisiana to be able to render aid and assistance to those that have been affected by Hurricane Laura. So this just goes to show you our officials are doing their part. They are prepared and they are ready to come in and assist once the coast is clear. Jordan.
Monique, it's good to know that there are people waiting,
Correct.
Literally, in parking lots, so close, staging and ready to respond. Patrick is with us right now. We want to get an update on exactly where Laura is. We see her closing in on southwest Louisiana coast. Still has such a well-defined eye there.
Yeah, and that's telling us that this is definitely very close to Category 5. It still may actually move in to southwest Louisiana as a Cat 5. Still happen. Right now, winds are at 150 miles an hour. You can see the eye wall. You see the eye wall right there. And it's about 25 miles in diameter. Seeing tornado warnings in through Cameron Parish because now we remember what happened with Harvey. We had the training effect. This is what is the training effect. Look at the same areas, seeing heavy rainfall, cells moving over the same location due to these feeder cells, feeder bands. Look at that. Classic feeder band, very similar to what we saw with Harvey over to our east. This is not going to do a Harvey in our area or in southwest Louisiana. This is going to move, but still, I want to point that out. This is a very prolific way to produce flooding rains, and that will probably happen in portions of Vermilion and lower and upper St. Martin Parish over into south central Louisiana, the Atchafalaya River Basin. So again, this is about 2 hours from landfall, very near Cameron, Louisiana. As far as the Doppler winds, we've seen the winds certainly increase. The winds are basically out of the east, across southeast Texas at this point, east and northeast, and that's going to be the case through the night until the center goes by our area. We'll likely see those winds then shift from the southwest as the center cranks up and heads towards, say, Newton County. Again, east to northeast winds tonight. Lake Charles at 38. Sustained winds, by the way. We're in the 20s for sustained winds in the triangle. That's okay. We can deal with that. And then as we take a look at here we go. Oh, very quickly. Look at this. Now 55 miles an hour out of the northeast over into Lake Charles. Gusts are rapidly picking up as the center continues to near the coastline. Don't have a wind reading from Cameron, but the winds are probably closer to hurricane force. And we have tropical storm force wind gusts in Port Arthur at 39. So 30 to 40 mile wind gusts right now into portions of southeast Texas. Those, again, are only going to go up as we head towards midnight over the next hour and a half. That those winds picking up to probably close to hurricane force in through even the triangle. So tornado watch in effect all over southeast Texas, southwest Louisiana through tonight into tomorrow morning. As we take a look at the track from the National Hurricane Center coming up in just a second, this is a vicious storm. I'm looking at infrared. And again, look at the center. This is where the tallest thunderstorms are, right around the eye. So the air is coming up out of those thunderstorms at the tallest, and it's sliding down. So it's kind of a cone, kind of like this. So the air is sliding. So here's the thunderstorms, looking at the profile view of the eye wall. Got thunderstorms this tall, and then it's sloped like this on the side. So the wind is, or the air is rising, and then it's falling down the side of the central dense overcast. That's what's happening here. The wind or the air is flowing down from the eye wall. That's where you get this transverse banding, and that's telling us perfect high pressure over the system right now. Could still see a Cat 5 before it reaches landfall. Probably won't do it, but anyway, we're at a Cat 4, and as you can see, this heads right towards this side of Cameron, between Cameron and Johnson Bayou, and then moves up towards Newton, Texas, by 7 a.m. tomorrow morning with winds of 110. 110 sustained. So that means Newton, Texas, far removed from the Gulf of Mexico, could see higher winds than Winnie, which is closer to the Gulf of Mexico. What a conundrum. It's all about which way this goes. So what does that mean for Orange? I'm still concerned for Orange and also new counties. You're going to see wind gusts, I think 110, 120, 130, 140 miles an hour. It's just how quickly it basically weakens, removed from the Gulf of Mexico, and parallels I-10. That will dictate what we see as far as the wind gusts in and around Orange. This is going to cause prolonged power outages. I know that Energy is going to have, what, 7,000 people here. I'm hoping that it doesn't take that long. I hope it doesn't happen like what we saw in 2005, 15 years ago. But there are going to be a lot of roads closed because of trees down, and there's going to be a lot of power outages.
You know, earlier we were visiting with some of the county officials. I believe it was the Jasper County judge who was on the air with us last hour. And, you know, he's preparing for the possibility that, quite honestly, you know, you're going to have the second wave of evacuations. People who stayed tonight wake up in the morning and say, wow, this was really bad, and, you know, assume that it's going to be potentially days and weeks until power can be restored, and they decide they want to get out. So, you know, they're preparing for that. He said it happens with every storm, but, you know, this may be more significant.
Yeah, it's the aftermath. What do you want your family to have to go through? You know, you're talking about, okay, you're going to have hot, humid weather conditions, no power, no AC in the middle of summertime. That's not a lot of fun living here.
No.
Do you want to do that to your family? And that's, you know, the thing is that you're going to lose your lights coming up over the next few hours as this storm goes into, say you stayed in Kirbyville or over towards Call. Okay, you didn't evacuate. Okay, you're far away from the Gulf of Mexico. You don't have a generator. You're not going to get affected by storm surge, but you're going to get affected by winds. When trees, the light will go out, and then you're going to hear in the distance, you're going to hear the feeder band come on in, and you're going to start hearing the wind pick up, and then the trees are going to start falling all around you. That's what's going to happen, because I know in 2005, we were on the air, and people were calling in scared to death at nighttime because they had no power, couldn't see what was going on, and trees were falling all around them. I took those calls back in that Saturday night right after Rita came through. I'll never forget that. So that's where we're at right now. Quick look at the storm surge. Yeah, it has certainly improved in southeast Texas, but that water, maybe over towards Bridge City and over in towards Orange County, this is not going to be forced in from the Gulf of Mexico from the south. The water that's being forced in off the Gulf of Mexico because of the rotation around the eye off the Gulf of Mexico is then going to be funneled from the east. That's where that water is going to come through. That's just amazing to me.
It's just a strange scenario. I know you mapped it out for us earlier. And the other thing that is so, hard to process for a lot of us, when you look at the map and think, okay, Newton may have honestly significantly higher winds in the morning than we even see in Beaumont.
It's
possible?
within oh yeah, it is really possible.
Okay.
It all depends on the trajectory, the size of the storm when it goes by them. And you know, back in 2004, Rita went a little further to the west, okay? But you know what? That caused the water to actually evacuate Sabine Lake. In fact, there were people that said they saw the bottom of Lake Sabine because it was evacuated due to those north and northeast winds. So it's all about which side of the storm you're on. Are you on the clean or the dirty side?
Okay, Patrick, we're going to let you regroup for just a second there. Jaleesa Irizarry is with us live in Beaumont, I believe. Jaleesa, exactly where are you?
Yes, we are in Beaumont tonight where we're seeing some light wind and some light rain right now. But I do want to show you, this is the East X Freeway, usually a very busy road. And as you can see right now, not a car in sight. This has really been the case for most of the evening. We've seen very few cars pass around this area. Now, as you can see, there's a mobile gas station over there. We did see a few cars over there at the mobile gas station earlier today. And really that shouldn't be the case because there is a curfew in place right now from dusk till dawn until it is revoked. So you really shouldn't be on the roads right now. And there's really no reason to be out on the roads right now because most of the businesses are closed. We were driving around for hours earlier today and we did not see a single business open. So really no reason to be driving around out and about right now. And as for us, we are taking it easy right now. We're actually going live just a few feet away from where we're crashing today. Education First Credit Union, big shout out to them for allowing us to stay in their lobby today. So we will be staying there. But again, if you have not left town, you need to stay inside and stay safe.
Well, let me talk to you just a bit more. Very familiar with that location. We've broadcast from there as well at times. Jaleesa, set the scene for us. The rain is just starting. Some of those outer bands approaching that part of Beaumont. Is the wind gusting much just yet?
Little bit, absolutely, yeah. It just happened as we were waiting to go live. The rain started picking up a little bit. My photographer, Alex, had to start cleaning up the lens. So, Alex, if you want to point up to the light area so they can see some of the rain coming down right now. Really starting to pick up, literally just as we were going live. And we are seeing a few gusts of wind. I felt them as I was standing by right here. So, probably one of those outer bands that we're seeing right now. But, again, not super significant, but it's something. We're getting some substance coming from the sky right now.
All right, you monitoring for us and be prepared to step inside because this thing could intensify quickly as far as conditions there in Beaumont. Thank you so much, Jaleesa Irizarry, live for us there tonight. So I want to also bring in Matt Howardson, who's been in Beaumont throughout the day, talking with some people who were evacuating. Matt?
That was mixed minus tar.
The line of cars says
That's
it
why.
all. North Texas is getting some new residents over the next few days.
The last few storms we had to evacuate and it was hectic.
People like C.J. Jones. He evacuated from his home in Beaumont early.
Tuesday morning, about 4 o'clock in the morning.
To escape Hurricane Laura. Like so many others in this line along I-20 in Mesquite outside the city's reception center. Folks can get hotel vouchers. Shelters aren't an option due to COVID-19, and the need for help is high. Some are waiting hours just to be seen.
And it hasn't been easy going for evacuees out here. The line, since we've arrived, has moved very slowly this way along I-20. People are getting out of their cars, and the hot sun isn't doing anyone any favors.
It's hot. It's a little nerve-wracking, but everything will work.
It's a little stressful.
During Hurricane Harvey, Tyranny Dixon had to be rescued from her home in Port Arthur.
We had to walk through the floodwaters. Then we got on boats and got rescued out of.
She's here to avoid that experience again.
Clear.
And on I-45 just south of Dallas, we found the Minutemen disaster response out of McKinney heading south to help.
When they are needed, we are prepared to go.
Armed with 2 rescue boats, they were doing the same thing 3 years ago to this day when Harvey hit.
We're there to help the citizens immediately, and that's what we hope to do here too.
For now, we can only hope that brave volunteers like this won't be needed as much this time around. In Dallas, I'm Matt Howardson.
Matt, perspective there from North Texas. Deja and I watching tonight from our remote facility. We made the move to be safe and to make sure that we stay on the air. Since 10 o'clock this morning, That's when we started our broadcasting. So more than 12 hours on the air tonight throughout the day to make sure that you and your family stay safe. It is a commitment that we take very seriously. And we took precautions because we wanted to ensure that we could be with you all night long, even if we got those gusts to 100 miles an hour in Beaumont.
Absolutely, and that's to acknowledge, Jordan, no one is exempt from the wrath of Mother Nature, not even a television station, you know, and we are well aware of that. We've been through this with you all for so many storms. So many years in terms of this past decade, we have had to replay this scenario over where we prepare for it, we live through it, and then we rebuild afterwards. And this is just another time where we're going to have to, you know, rally around one another and make sure that once the dust settles, we're really 409 strong, that motto that we've kind of adopted over the past year, because our community is really going to depend on one another.
And it strikes me how different the damage, though, could be with this one. I feel like, you know, most recent storms have inflicted such hurt and such harm in the form of water.
Right.
And we're going to have some of that. We've talked about the significant storm surge, the reason that Interstate 10 is closed at the state line there heading into Louisiana. It's going to be significant. We're hoping that the storm surge damage is not as significant. No. Patrick, by the way, just stepped out of the studio. We can still hear Mr. Vaughn, so I just don't want him to get caught saying anything. We'll keep talking for it, Patrick, but we can't hear you. That all being said, you know, I was saying that the storm surge is going to be so much more significant, it appears, in the Lake Charles area.
And when you talk about the damage and the water that we've been dealing with over the past couple of storms that we faced, Jordan, this one, the wind is just going to be a beast. We were looking at the Mississippi River shifting directions because of the sheer intensity of that wind. It can do that to the mighty Mississippi. Just imagine what it could do to the roof of a home, siding, you know, businesses in their windows. So these are things that folks are really going to have to take into consideration. If you've evacuated, kind of prepare yourself for what you may see once you get back into the Golden Triangle and surrounding areas.
I think that's something that's been going through a lot of our minds. What will our houses look like?
Yeah.
You know, the greater Houston area, places like Galveston, really feel like they dodged a bullet tonight. Mauriceville is in Galveston County along the bay for us.
I'm Mauriceville, and about an hour east of me, they are bracing for the brunt of Hurricane Laura, right there on the Texas-Louisiana state line. Surge remains a major concern, as it also does in Galveston, but it remains the same for places that are even more inland. We are about 30 or 40 miles up from the coast, and you can see this road behind me is closed. Crews have shut it down because if you follow it back, it goes over a bayou and then right next to Galveston Bay. They are expecting 2 to 4 feet of storm surge, and that could certainly cause problems. Beyond that, it's the wind that is a worry. Power outages in Houston could cause major trouble. So it's going to be a long night with a lot of people watching and waiting to see what it will do. We will know after the sun rises. Back to you.
One, two, three, four. There we go. Mauriceville there reporting for us. Patrick is back with us. We can hear you as well now, sir.
I'm so glad. Now that you know. Anyway, let's take a look at what's going on across
How long have you been on the air? 3 o'clock? Something like that.
Something like that. It's been a long span. As you can see, we continue to watch. Let's see. Let me get down and show you how far we are from making a landfall. Here is Cameron. So still about shortly after midnight is when it's going to make landfall. You could do the math. Maybe I may be a little bit faster earlier. But again, we're looking at, see the true hurricane force winds. Let me stop this now. And I think right in here is where you're the hurricane force, the sustained hurricane force winds, right in this ball right here. Okay, but we've already got tropical storm force wind, and this is the Lake Charles. Tropical storm force winds are in and around Beaumont, getting close to Beaumont. So that's where we're at. So the hurricane force winds are going to be in a. Oh, come on! Did you freeze on me? I'm talking to my computer. Yes, I do that. All right, we'll go on. Well, I'm going to close this out, guys. And
Okay, we can come back to us. It's okay.
Yeah, I have
We'll let you reset over there. I understand they're also working on Dejan's computer. So if you want to come to me, I'll be happy to talk for just.
I'm going to back up. Just give me a second.
Okay, we'll do that.
Trying to get this working.
10:35 tonight. You're watching special continuing coverage from 12 News. On air, online, on YouTube, on our 12 News Now app. We thank you for sticking with us as we continue working to keep you informed, to keep your family safe. We know so many of you have evacuated from Southeast Texas and you're watching us remotely. We're broadcasting remotely as we work together to keep you and your family safe. Again, the sustained winds from Laura, 150 miles an hour. This is what Patrick and his meteorological friends call the Doppler winds, basic tracking wind direction coming to and coming away from the Doppler radar site. In this particular location is the beam coming from Lake Charles. Patrick?
That's correct. And so you see the change in colors between the green and the red. That means that the winds are going basically east in that direction. So we can tell basically if there's any tornadic thunderstorms. I don't see anything right now, but wind speeds in this location over 140 miles an hour. What are they over here? 141 miles an hour. Now this is way up in the sky. This is probably about 7,000 up in the air over there. Okay, so I'm just looking at the wind speeds right now. So we're going to be watching little signatures embedded within the Doppler winds that are going to signify whether or not somebody gets a tornado warning or not, where we're at right now.
Okay, and I know you've given us kind of an early warning that you wouldn't be surprised if we don't have some tornado warnings as this kind of spins around and comes up the coast.
Exactly. Whenever that eye wall comes ashore in about at about an hour and a half, I expect all of Cameron and probably all of Vermilion Parish to be under a tornado warning. That's probably what's going to happen. But as you can see, there's the eye being picked up. So we're going to start seeing very close to hurricane force wind gusts coming on in towards Cameron and Lake Charles. There you go. Look at that, 61 now. 61 mile per hour gust, close 40 in Port Arthur in the last few minutes. So things coming up as far as ramping up as far as the wind speed across southeast Texas, southwest Louisiana. You can see the east to southeast wind south of Marsh Island in through the Atchafalaya River Basin. Again, a tornado watch in effect for all of southeast Texas, southwest Louisiana. And the satellite continues to show just a robust signature of a
monster.
Of a monster storm, very close to Cat 5 status.
A monster that's so close to us here in southeast Texas. Do you mind flipping to the radar for us just a second?
Yeah.
We're getting a report that the rain has started picking up just a bit in Beaumont, and I wanted to check the radar before we went there live. Yes, and that is, folks, just the very outer edge crossing through Jefferson County right now. Feeder bands here. 12 News reporter Jaleesa Irizarry is with us. She's back at the corner of 105 and East Tex there. You put on the rain gear.
It's raining. We are seeing some rain come down right now. First time I had to put on the rain jacket since about 1 o'clock today when we saw some outer band come in pretty heavily early this afternoon. But yeah, check this out. This is the most rain I've seen in a bit today. So it's definitely starting to come down, starting to collect. Alex, if you want to show that light. And it's coming down steadily. And we are seeing a little bit of the wind pick up. Alex, if you can show them the trees right there, you can kind of see the trees slowly starting to wave around. Again, nothing crazy, but it is some movement here that we've seen, and it's the first time we've seen it in some time. But the good news here is we don't see a lot of cars on the road. People are adhering to that mandatory evacuation, and they are staying put, and that is what we like to see. And of course, we're staying put, we're staying safe as well. We are at the Education First Credit Union. We'll be staying this evening, so in case it does really get intense or safe, I just got to head out over to that door and run inside. So we are staying safe as well, but we are seeing some rain come down here, as you can see, pretty significant right now. Have to wear a rain jacket now. So please, guys, again, if you are on the road, please go inside, stay inside, and stay safe.
You know, Beaumont is a ghost town, just like it says at the bottom of the screen right now, and we're happy for that. You know, and we're glad that you're in a place where you can seek shelter quickly if those rain bands do intensify. Right now, though, doesn't look particularly gusty there in Beaumont.
No, it's not super gusty, honestly. Like just a slight little wind going by, enough to make the trees turn a little bit, but nothing to kind of sweep you off your feet or kind of take you aback by any means. Just a slight wind. The most significant thing right now is the rain, having to throw on a rain jacket right now, and the most steady rain I've seen since about 1 o'clock today. So we are seeing some of those outer bands come in to Beaumont right now. This
is just like a garden variety summer shower at this point, but we know the worst is yet to come. You stay safe, Jaleesa. We really appreciate you checking in there. Check again for us right there at 105 and East Texas and Beaumont. Let's talk about the roads, because this is something that is going to impact us for a while. Because of the storm surge there in southwest Louisiana, authorities have gone ahead and closed Interstate 10 eastbound at the state line. It is blocked. Again, I-10 eastbound closed at the state line. The westbound lanes are closed for folks coming once you hit the Atchafalaya Basin. The detours, my goodness, they're significant. They're sending folks practically up to North Texas across I-20, also suggesting using 61, I-55, I-59. As I recall, that's the one that goes out of New Orleans. Isn't that, Dejanique? I think so. I mean, so again, we're talking significant rerouting of traffic through this whole quadrant of the country. So let's talk a bit more about Lake Charles. We know the storm surge there is expected to be so much more significant. Patrick Vaughn's already been seeing winds there close to 65, 70 miles an hour around Lake Charles. The Weather Service meteorologists have evacuated, and word from the Hurricane Center that the storm surge there could just absolutely inundate a particular parish. NBC's Jay Gray is in Lake Charles.
Hey there, good evening from Lake Charles, Louisiana, where we're just starting to feel the outer bands of what is a monster storm churning in the Gulf. Laura, a Category 4 hurricane, a major storm with winds of 150 miles an hour, gusts even stronger. As this storm continues to move inland, targeting this area, we're going to see those strong winds along driving rains, more than a foot of rain in some areas, but it's the storm surge that is the primary concern right now. A wall of water 20 feet or higher that's going to sweep over the shoreline. It's also going to push into some of the lakes, some of the creeks, and some of the bayous here and move that water inland. We could see a storm surge of 30 feet or more before this is all said and done. In fact, the National Hurricane Center says that it's a storm surge that is unsurvivable in their words. As for what's happening on the ground, this is a ghost town, and that's the good news. It looks like most people are paying very close attention to this storm. Now, there are some who are riding this out. Talk to them. They feel like they'll be safe, but a lot of people have all moved to higher ground. The time for any preparations, the time to get out is clearly over at this point. Everyone that's left behind hung down, waiting to see exactly what Laura may bring. Landfall expected in the next couple of hours, and it will continue to push up and eventually out toward the East Coast. That's the latest from here in Lake Charles. I'm Jay Gray. Back to you.
And as Jay was underscoring, Dejanique, we really hope that many of our friends in southwest Louisiana have moved inland. The storm surge, the word they're using, unsurvivable storm surge.
Absolutely.
Oh, I don't know that we could hear you just yet.
Microphone check.
There you
we
go.
are. There we are.
But in all seriousness, I mean, the storm surge, they're using just horrific adjectives and words like unsurvivable.
You never want to hear things like that, especially when you have a monster storm like this that's going to come in overnight. I don't know about you, but I feel like it's just different when you have the dark cloth over this event as opposed to something that can actually see what's happening around you. This is a little more intense, and this is something that you've kind of got to ride out because of the morning hours. That's when we'll be able to get a more clear picture of the damage that's being left behind. But if it's anything like the experts are predicting, like our meteorologists are forecasting, this isn't going to be anything to take lightly once we look at the recovery efforts and the process and just moving forward with cleanup.
You know what we haven't talked a lot about is the aftermath of these storms.
Yeah.
And those of you who lived through Rita and Ike, I've heard the stories. I grew up in Port Neches and Groves and had to be away for a few years after college, so I followed those from afar. But I'm particularly struck the aftermath of Harvey and Imelda emotionally, and the fear that we all felt after those storms, and the anxiety that came with it. And you think about, the water in those situations rose relatively slowly.
Right.
We watched as it crept into our 12 studios, and we eventually decided we had to evacuate. And now to think about storm surge, always wondered, does it come rapidly, or is it a situation where folks might have time to seek higher ground if they've put off departing? That's a story we may hear more about, a scenario that we may hear more about, especially in places like southwestern Louisiana, like Lake Charles. Patrick has stepped out for just a second. While he does that, I'm going to let you know before we do that we have new tornado warnings coming up on the radar now. Patrick's been telling us this was going to happen. These outer bands, or quite honestly, more of the bands closer to the eye, coming closer and closer to the coast here in southwest Louisiana. So those are new tornado warnings. None in our immediate viewing area, which stops at state line, but we'll continue to watch those, Dejanique.
Absolutely. And let's go ahead and check in with those three things that we need to know as we continue to watch the effects of Hurricane Laura this evening. Number one, landfall from monster Hurricane Laura expected shortly. We're saying it at 10 o'clock. We're going to start to feel some of those effects, and the reporters that are out in the field are definitely verifying that. Winds are picking up. It is starting to rain. So Laura is starting to make her presence known. Number two, officials hunkered down waiting for impacts of storms in southeast Texas. I'm looking at tweets from Jordan James and Victoria DeLeon right now, both in Hardin County, where a lot of officials have decided to take cover. They're in a very structurally sound building. They feel comfortable, safe, and secure there. And officials just want to be able to ride out this storm so that once the conditions are favorable, they're able to get out, start assessing, and make folks aware of exactly what's happening in their communities. And number three, life-threatening conditions likely. Lake Charles could take the brunt of impacts. We've been saying this for hours now. Definitely not something that we take lightly. We're breathing a slight sigh of relief because the storm did jog east, but our neighbors in Lake Charles are our friends, they're our coworkers, and they're our family members. So this is not something that we're taking lightly when we see this. So we're definitely thinking of them and praying with them. But let's not make any mistakes here. Southeast Texas could still feel lots of effects from this monster storm, as it's been dubbed tonight, Laura, with winds that are really going to leave impacts long after this storm heads north.
Dejanique, before we check back in with Patrick, I want to share some reflections that we heard from newly ordained Bishop David Toops of the Catholic Diocese of Beaumont. He's been in the city, 5 days since being ordained on Friday, and he has spent the afternoon praying with Beaumont